that story keeps kind of playing in the background, in the back of your mind. It definitely takes an odd sort of turn. She's not holding any punches, she's not sugarcoating anything, she just tells it like it is. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. So today we don't have the shelves behind me. Boyfriend is studying in the other room, so we're in the bedroom. You'll have to forgive me for that and my nasally voice. We did bring back more than just memories from Georgia. This is the stack for the month of June. I'm aware we're like halfway through July, but it's really gonna bug me if I don't do like a full, like if I don't do all 12 months of favorites, or like reading wrap-ups. So we're gonna do June anyway. As always, I have my handy dandy reading notebook, so we can just jump right in. So the first one that I finished in June was The Omnivore's Dilemma by Michael Pollan. It's incredibly informative, which is a good thing. I feel like this is the only book that you really need to read if you are curious about the food industry, how food is made, where it comes from. He spends, and I'm not kidding, the first about 100 pages just talking about corn, but Michael Pollan does an incredible job of doing like actual journalistic research, putting his feet in the dirt, and doing the hard work that a lot of people probably didn't want to do, which is why he's the first to come out with something like this that's like really, really dense and really, really detailed. The whole premise behind this is that he wants to create the perfect meal that he completely 100% grew / hunted and killed all on his own. I gave it 5 stars just for like the research alone. I love how detailed it was. He even goes into like advertising, like food advertising and what the consumer sees when they're in the grocery store, and how like all of that, the psychology of that kind of plays into, or maybe juxtaposes with how the food was actually grown. I found it really, really fascinating. The next one that I finished was a reread. Now, I am not a rereader, but I really loved this book. I read it a couple of years ago, but that was Bear by Marian Engel. So this is a very controversial novel. It came out in the 70s, I think, in Canada, 1976. And it is about a woman. She's very kind of living a very small life. She's basically a librarian, and she like catalogs things for like a historical museum in her very small town in Canada. And she's given an opportunity to go to this estate that's very, very isolated. It's out on an island all by itself, to catalog the library of the estate's owner who's recently passed away. So she takes the opportunity. She's literally not doing anything else with her life, and meets a bear that was kept there as a pet, and it's just still there chained in the barn. The reason why this one was so controversial was because the woman begins a relationship with this bear. So it was a little outside the box at the time. Still now, it definitely takes an odd sort of turn into bestiality. And I feel like the whole thing you could kind of take as a metaphor for her sort of discovering herself. Lou is living her life on autopilot and just is kind of sort of letting life happen to her. And so meeting this bear kind of wakes her up a little bit. So I feel like it was more about her journey as a woman, and awakening to herself and kind of waking up to life, than it was about a relationship with the bear. I found it really, really fascinating. It's a quick read. I said in my notes, it's kind of like she's experiencing this renaissance of spirit for the natural world. I loved the vibe of just like being so isolated out on this island and your only companion being a pretty docile bear. So I loved it. I give it a 5 stars. Okay, I lied. The first one that I finished in June was a short story collection. So it's I'm Fine But You Appear to Be Sinking by Lena Crow. These are like speculative fiction short stories. I like being in a familiar setting and being able to like put my feet on the ground there, and then something going awry or something being just a little bit off once we get into the story, if that makes any sense, because it feels familiar and you can like kind of hunker down in the story and then be surprised and kind of be shocked at whatever's going on. So anyway, I do have a whole reading vlog on this, which I can link in the cards if you guys are interested. It was a good beach read. Something that I thought was really unique about this was there was 3 or 4, maybe even 5 different parts to one particular short story. It was called Spud and Spud 2. We get this little illustration right here. They would split that short story up so that whenever there was a time jump, we got like 1 or 2 short stories in between. So you're experiencing a time jump in the story, and then you're also experiencing a time jump, not a time jump, but space of time in real life. One of the stories you're reading throughout the entire collection, which I thought was kind of an interesting way of doing it, because that story keeps kind of playing in the background, in the back of your mind. Lots of odd little creatures in this, and I loved how they kind of pop in and sort of serve as a little bit of a metaphor, but they're not even necessarily like the star of the show. It's pretty subtle. So I feel like this might be a good place to start if you just want to dip your toes into science fiction. Next up was a memoir. This is Joy Harjo's Poet Warrior. I did read her first memoir, Crazy Brave, years ago and loved it. So this is not necessarily even a follow-up, I wouldn't say. It's some of the same stories that we hear in her first memoir, but from an older, more mature perspective. And so we just sort of get a more nuanced, more poetic perspective on her life, and it's a lot more reflective. She talks about like her kids, and now she has grandkids. It's split up into different parts. I really liked the way that she structures it. So you have like, I think part 1 is called Ancestral Roots, and then you have her becoming and her basically like, going through puberty, becoming a young woman, a lot of events that happened during her formative years, and now she's in the sunset of her life. She talks about writing, what that meant for her, how nobody thought that she could make a living out of being a poet, but how writing was like this portal to grace for her. It was almost like religious for her. And throughout, I love that metaphor of her starting out in her formative years as girl warrior, and then growing up into sort of graduating into poet warrior. That whole metaphor was really beautiful. It definitely makes me want to kind of step away from the modern world whenever she talks about like communing with plants and communing with ancestors. It makes me want to just like step away from the modern world and social media, and it really makes you reflect on and appreciate sort of a slower paced way of life. I will be finishing up the rest of her work soon. I think I have 1 more poetry book left, and then I'll be doing a whole video on her work because I will have finished her entire oeuvre, so I'm pretty excited about that. So following along with the sort of poetry theme, I read Black Girl Call Home. This was sort of my Juneteenth read. Not that I needed to read a whole book just on that day, but it was an excuse to just bop this up higher onto my to be read list, because I've had this saved on my TBR board on Pinterest for years. I think I've had it saved since 2021, which is when it was published, because this cover is gorgeous. I love all the little barrettes in her hair and like the symmetry of it all. So I sat out on my balcony and read through this in I think 2 sittings. Basically is recounting the author's life through poems, growing up queer and female in America and Black in America, and what that means. Her mom comes through so strongly in this. I feel like we get more about her mom than we do about her. Parents tend to play a very big role in our lives, especially when we're young and we don't really have a lot of agency over ourselves, and we just kind of have to do what they say. There's a lot about cooking, a lot about her mom doing her hair in the kitchen. She talks about coming out to her mom and the things that were said in that conversation. There's a really brilliant one about Kanye West. Footnotes for Kanye. This one was really clever. She uses his own song lyrics to kind of call out the hypocrisy that she has observed. I did say trigger warning for sexual assault, gun violence, generational trauma, and homophobia. I just love how raw and real it is. She really kind of cuts to the bone. She's not holding any punches. She's not sugarcoating anything. She just tells it like it is. And it's just nice to see somebody just come out and say what they want to say. So I believe I gave this one 5 stars. So the last book we had was another short story collection. And this was Milk, Blood, Heat by Danchelle W. Moniz. I hope I'm saying her name right. These take place in Florida. We have a lot of female narrators, which I loved. Like it feels very like adolescent female narrator. That kind of vibe where you're a little bit innocent, but you're learning about things and kind of experiencing things for the first time. Tongues was really good. That was one of my faves. It's about a young girl observing and experiencing some hypocrisies in her local church, and some things that the pastors doing and has done. Feast was another really good one. We have a woman who's struggling with the acceptance of a miscarriage, and she ends up at an aquarium, and there's a bit about an octopus that's odd. Things kind of go in a direction that you might not be expecting, but I liked it. It was kind of an odd ending, but I thought it was cool. And I felt like there was a lot in here also about motherhood, like mothers and daughters and sisterhood as well, female friendship, again, like adolescent female friendship. It feels a bit nostalgic as well for that reason. There wasn't anything in here that like blew my socks off, but it was one of those short stories that just, you kind of read it, not even for like the plot of what's going on in each story, but just those like really small, intimate moments. You get these little one-liners, and you're kind of taken aback to that feeling of, you know, whatever it was that you experienced when you were like a 14-year-old girl. If you like sort of family stories, again, motherhood, mothers and daughters, sisterhood, girlhood in general, that's kind of what this one screams to me. Now, as a bonus, really quickly, I was going to mention 2 books that I bought recently for my Reading Around the World challenge, just in case anybody's interested in following along with that. I have had so many recommendations in the comments on my channel, like, oh, I'm from Germany, you've got to read this one for Germany or for Russia or whatever, and so I found 2 that I think I'm really gonna like for Thailand and Morocco. So these will be 2 that you see me read. So for Thailand, I'm reading The Blind Earthworm in the Labyrinth. This one, the cover is what struck me. I am trying to find things that are a little bit on the shorter side. This one's 200 pages. I'm going to try to keep my max to like 200, 250 pages so that it doesn't take me like 5 years to complete this challenge. I just spent about 20 minutes scraping off stickers that were plastered all over the cover. Don't we love that? And then it says Harvard. Surely that's not like Harvard? Did this come from Harvard? I don't know. Anyway, this one sounds just wacky enough that I'm gonna really love it. So that's for Thailand. And then for Morocco, Blood Feast. This one's supposed to be like contemporary feminist lit, but like a little bit horror, grotesque. A look at gendered body, social class, illness, double standards, and desire. I'm excited for these. I mean, I have no idea what to expect. As always, leave me your favorite book in June that you read and a translated work that you think I might like for this Reading Around the World challenge, because you have done such a good job of leaving me comments. But I need so many. There's so many. That is it. That is everything. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.